Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the No Nay Never podcast. We are down to the final week of this crazy championship season. The top of the table's been sorted, Leeds and Burnley, both in automatic promotion spots. Burnley currently top of the table as at the time of recording, pending Leeds game at Bristol City this evening. Let's see whether or not the Clarets can take a giant step towards securing that title. It's all to play for in the playoffs, and relegation is getting tantalisingly exciting for one Lancashire rival. I'm joined this week by Tom Whittaker and Rich Steele to look back on that thumping of QPR away at the weekend and to decide what exactly we all need to do to secure that title. So, listeners, buckle up. Let's go. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome to another episode of our show. Rich Steele, I'm coming straight to you because we missed you last week. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm very good, Natalie. Tom, I hope you're all good. Viewers, I hope you're all well. And looking forward to talking about our recent successes.
Indeed, you're always so polite and accommodating when you join ours. Me and Tom and George just come on and go, right, you're all right. As evidenced by Tom. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Hey, you're all right.
See, it's like we practice these things. I just line them up. Open net. Both of you were at the ground on at the weekend. I was in London and never made it to the ground for reasons we won't divulge into at this particular moment. But you three and regular panelist George Poole as well. Those of you who have not yet checked it out on social media, we've got a cracking picture of the three of them, and we had some interesting messages from young George Poole on the train home, which we might publish on Twitter at some point because that was quite amusing. A fantastic day out. Before we get on to the QPR game and what it means, I guess, for the fans particularly, I guess more than anything. Rich, let's come to you because you weren't on our promotion party episode last week, so we haven't yet had a chance to check in with you about what promotion means and how you're feeling about us being back in the Premier League next season.
Yeah, sorry I missed that one. Daddy duties called last week, unfortunately, so I couldn't quite make it on. But it's fantastic, isn't it? I think the season we've had, I never felt we was gonna quite get that automatics, and then all of a sudden it opened up for us with our amazing run of form, and obviously Sheffield United dropping a few, well, not a few, quite a lot of unexpected points, and that. The game on Easter Monday against Sheffield United is one that will live long in the memory. I think atmosphere at football these days isn't quite what it was, but I thought the atmosphere was superb. I thought it was a really, really good performance. There was no panic when Sheffield United equalised. The fans got behind the team, and we managed to get that goal before half time. And obviously, it was a masterclass. And it was great friendly scenes on the end, at the end of the game, with people happily running on the pitch, enjoying themselves. What a way to get promotion, and looking forward to getting back in the big time next year. Of course, it's going to be a challenge. We all know that. It's hard to know what's going to happen in the transfer window. One thing I will say is I don't think anybody can guarantee whether we'll stay up or not. But I do think under Parker, we will be more competitive. I do hope that we keep a lot of the core of the squad together and add to it rather than completely demolishing it. And I think we will do that. I think we've been more sensible. Obviously, we've got Humphreys, Edwards, Fleming and Anthony have obviously all joined on permanent deals now and all for a good price. So, there's a lot to be optimistic about. And it definitely felt a party atmosphere in London on Saturday.
Yeah, I bet it did. Just picking up on that then, Rich, you talked then about feeling more confident next season with Parker. We touched on this in the podcast last week about how different it does feel. And we know that Vincent Kompany's approach to the season last year just wasn't particularly effective. Because we've been, particularly that October to December spell was particularly challenging in terms of Burnley being a spectator sport, and it was a pretty grim couple of months, and we were all very down on Parker. We were very down on the side. We couldn't see promotion anywhere. What is it about Parker, the Parker that we've seen now and the manager he's grown into by the end of the season, that gives you that confidence?
Do you know what? I would say Parker's pretty much remained quite calm and level-headed throughout, and I think that's probably one of his strengths, where you've maybe seen Wilder kind of like losing his head a little bit with the pressure of it all. You know, Parker's remained calm. He's obviously stuck to his guns. You know, obviously the defence has clearly been the bedrock for our success. And I just think the teams grew in confidence. You know, the more anybody who's played team sport knows it. You know, when it's a new team, no matter what level you play at, it takes a while to gel. You know, as we mentioned on previous podcasts, I think the signing of Edwards give everybody a real lift, give us a little bit more dynamism in attack. Yeah. And I think just generally, and this is a sign of a good manager and the coaching staff, is, you know, players have just got better and better as the season's gone on. You know, you look at like, you know, two in particular, Anthony and Hannibal, are so much better now than they were during that spell. And I think we just look a little bit more confident in the final third. You know, there was times when the build-up play was okay. We get to the final third and the last pass was poor, or the finish was poor, or, you know, it just wasn't clicking, and it's obviously clicked a lot better in recent weeks. And like I said, there's just that real togetherness with the team. And you know, you look at, and obviously Brownell's played a big part in that, where his form's just got better and better. And he's on 16 goals from midfield, and I think he got 2 assists on Saturday. So there's been a number of different factors. And it's just been great to see a team just genuinely get better. And unless my maths is wrong, which it could be, but I'm pretty sure we've won 11 of the last 13 games and drawing 2. You know, which is a tremendous achievement this stage of the season. So it's something that I'm very proud of. And like I said, I think Friday we played with the same intensity, but you could tell there was a little bit more freedom of the players. You know, they look really confident, and to get that 5-0 win was a real kind of, you know, example of how far the team's come.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Tom, moving on to you now, just going to give poor Richard's voice a little bit of a, this is post QPR voice, listeners. This is what we sacrifice to bring you a podcast. We go to QPR, we cheer for 90 minutes, and we get merry on the way home, and we still put out a podcast. You are welcome, listeners. Tom, let's give him a little bit of a break, just so we can come back in a minute. I'm going to swap this. I'm going to leave this to the beginning of the podcast, but I think with some of the points that Rich said then, this is a really good time to bring this. We're recording this the morning after the EFL's season end of season awards were held. Scott Parker picking up manager of the season, and our core spine of our 3 central defenders, Traff, CJ, and Esteve, getting in the defence of that season. A lot of people obviously very critical of Parker getting the manager of the season award, but given what Rich has said there and the challenges that he faced at the beginning of the season and what he's turned around, I know we're biased, but this to me feels like he deserved. Like, Company won it 2 years ago, but obviously that was just because this style of football was incredible and he blew the league away. You know, Daniel Farke hasn't quite done, you know, enough if they do get the title to runaway leaders. You know, to me, it feels like the challenges it has faced, Parker absolutely deserves that award. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think ourselves as Burnley fans will all look at that, look at the sort of upheaval we had in the squad, the fact that the squad rebuild wasn't actually done until the season had already started, and say, yeah, you know, he had some difficult circumstances to work with. I don't know how much of an awareness there is of that outside the club, to be honest. And I wonder if the main reason that Parker's got the award is, I think, perhaps because of some of the records we've set. I think promotion, when you're a club who's receiving parachute payments, is kind of almost, and I think you touched on the reactions that's come from some of the sort of content creators, that kind of thing, is that, well, you know, obviously Burnley have got promoted because they've just come down from the Premier League and got the parachute money. But I think it's the way we've done it. I think it's the fact that we've broken these records for, or, you know, we're on the verge of breaking records or equaling records for most clean sheets, fewest goals conceded, that kind of thing. I think that's the kind of thing that just makes it stand out and makes it a little bit more than just a run-of-the-mill parachute payment club promotion. I don't think anyone would have complained if Daniel Farke had won it. Obviously, they had not quite to the same extent, but they had a bit of an upheaval in the summer, a bit of a rebuild as well. Some of their best players left. I think probably Leeds will feel a bit hard done to not get any of the sort of the main awards, as it were. You know,
yeah.
I think for me, the player of the season probably should have been between Tanaka at Leeds and Esteve, and neither of them made the final three, which I thought was a bit strange.
Yeah, Esteve's an odd one, I think. It always tends to be a flair player. It tends to be a goal scorer or like a tricky midfielder, doesn't it? That they always seem to get the headlines. I think that's quite indicative of where that award tends to go.
Yeah, and it would have been nice to see a goalie win it for once as well, and see if Trafford had got it. But
yeah, true.
As I say, we've got the man for one at least, so we've got something unlike Leeds. But yeah, I think that's probably what's done it. I think it's the kind of way we've done it and breaking records, that sort of thing. Whereas I think you look at Leeds, and like they've obviously had a brilliant season. They haven't got any more points than us, they haven't got any fewer points than us, but they've had a brilliant season. But I think ours is just that little bit more unique, and I think that's probably what's got Parker the award, probably what's got him over the line. But it had to be one of him or Farke. You couldn't be giving it to anybody else, I think, despite some people throwing the name of Tom Cleverley out there for some reason. I saw on Twitter.
I know. I saw that as well. I also saw Lampard as well. I was just like, get in the bin, the lot of you. Rich, sticking with the awards for a moment, a lot of dismay that, not just from Burnley fans, by the way, from a lot of EFL fans, that Brownhill didn't make the team of the season. Now, you can only have 3 players from one side, and I did find it genuinely hilarious that the team of the season was made up of 3 Leeds players, 3 Burnley players, 3 Sheffield United players, and 2 more. So it's like we maxed out those 3 completely. So let's say then that, you know, I think Trafford has to be in there. I think Esteve has to be in there. Is there an argument that they should have gone with Brownhill over CJ?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a really difficult one because, like Tom said, you know, you've had a defence which has conceded 15 in 45 games. Like, I think because you're probably in the midst of the season, it's kind of like you go from one game to the next. When you actually think about how mental it is, 15 from 45, I had a conversation with a work colleague who's an Everton fan, and he was like, I actually had a look at the league table yesterday, and Burnley's conceded 15 from 45. That is absolutely mental.
Really, right?
Yeah. It is, man. You know, and I think people go, well, Burnley are boring, but there's 2 things you do in football. You attack and defend. And the second part, the defensive part, we've absolutely blown all records out the water. So, yeah, there's an argument, isn't there, for Brownhill. You know, Brownhill, end of the day, for me, Brownhill should be in the team. But, you know, I think another Leeds player should be in the team as well. I don't understand why you have to limit it to 3 players per team.
I agree.
It's not a primary school sports day where you're giving awards out, you know, to everybody, is it? You know, it's professional football at the end of the day. So listen, I think the picture of Dyche on the wall would summarise, I think, the view of having 3 players per team, wouldn't it? So I'm not going to say it because Natalie will tell me off for saying it. But that's what it is. If people get what I'm talking about. But yeah, you know, Brownhill should be in it, in my opinion. I like Sargent. I think he's a good player. I don't think Sainz should be in it because he's done nothing essentially the second half of the season. So yeah, I think a lot of the awards, like, to me, this is the last thing I'll say. Like, why aren't the awards done after the season? Like, Alexander got manager. Yeah. Like, ultimately, right, if Farke wins the league, it's unfair for him not to get it because they've won the league, in my opinion. And
you can't just always have the winner of the league always automatically.
Yeah, but those 2 are just so much better. So, like, but like, if we've got the same points, like, why is Parker better than him? I'm just trying to not be biased. I know the defensive record was probably edged it, but then, like, Graham Alexander got it for Bradford. They've not won in 4 games, and they could end up not getting promoted. So I just feel just doing the season.
That League 2 promotion race is crazy.
Yeah,
we'll come on to leagues in a minute, but oh my god.
Yeah, so I don't know. I thought the awards, but like, yeah, it was. You know, I think I think Tom has hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of people outside of Burnley don't really get what he did and how much of a shambles we were.
Yeah.
You know, like, genuinely this season, we could have gone on to do what Luton did if we didn't get it, if he didn't get the group together. You know, because who would have thought Luton would have been in this relegation battle? No one. So I think now in hindsight, even though them couple of months were hard to watch, we all know why he did it. You know, and I listened to a recent interview, and he wanted to build the foundations, and the foundations were starting with the defence. So yeah, I think he does get it, but I think with the awards, I think they should just wait until the end of the season. Seems the most logical thing to me. But
yeah, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Okay, Tom, let's get back to Burnley before we're going to go on and have a look at the wider league position shortly. Fair to say the metaphoric handbrake was off at the weekend. Initial, start us off, kick us off with your reaction to that incredible day down in the capital.
Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously, as you're going in, it's a party atmosphere. You're already up. There's no pressure on the game. I think we were all pretty hopeful that, you know, we were going to turn up and play a QPR team who aren't as good as us, nothing to play for, and it really was stark how little they cared. You know, they really they weren't up for it. Let's say they're not as good as us anyway. So if we're busting it up and they aren't, you're going to see a result like we got. But it's fantastic to see because you know, at the end of the game, the club were tweeting it's not over yet. They were talking about going for the title and the interviews and that kind of thing. And I think it's notable that Parker's got his 2 promotions have been playoffs and then second place. I'm sure he really wants to complete the hat trick and get the league title himself as well. But you never really know until you see it in action whether they're just kind of saying that because that's what they know they have to say. I mean, we used to, all the years with Dyche, we used to, as soon as the job's done, just, you know, roll over and don't bother for the rest of the season. So I was hopeful we'd win, but I was kind of thinking maybe this is going to be a bit of a stodgy 1-0 or something like that. But the way we played was fantastic. We really wanted to put on a show, I think it's fair to say. And as I say, QPR aren't as good as us anyway, but if they're playing it, you know, 80% and we're playing 100%, then you're going to get a result like we did. Scored some really good goals. The football was fantastic. We could have easily got, if we'd have been 6-0 up at half time, that would have been, that wouldn't have flattered us. You know, we were just so much better than them. It was untrue. And it's the joy of being in this league, isn't it? You know, we're never going to, well, very rarely we're going to get a game where we really blow a team away like that in the Premier League, but in the Championship, we're the big boys, aren't we? And it's great to, you know, that must be what it's like being a Man City fan or an Arsenal fan, just seeing your team turn up away and just absolutely blow another team away. It was great. Really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Rich, it seemed to me watching the game that there was a freedom that hasn't been there at times this season. Is that just because we've now got promoted, or is there a culture shift in this side?
I think a little bit of both, but I think mainly for the fact we got promoted. You know, you can relax a little bit for how amazing I imagine it would be to be a professional footballer. There's still a lot of pressure on, you know, there's a lot of noise, and, you know, if you have a bad game, you get a lot of criticism. So like Tom said, you know, they just felt a real party atmosphere going into the game. It helped that QPR decided to not track anybody in midfield. And that's why I've got my Ireland top on tonight, is for our, well, he doesn't sound it, but he does play for Ireland, and for our midfield maestro, Josh Cullen, who was just unbelievable on Saturday, even got himself a goal, and, you know, how well he's played again this season. And he's someone who I still really think could make the step up in surrounded by, you know, maybe someone who's a little bit more physically better in midfield than what we had last season, even though Burge was good. So yeah, it was just great to see, you know, everybody wanted to get on the ball. And I think it ended in the perfect way with Ramsey getting on. I think that was a really nice way to finish the game. Yeah. You know, he got a good 10, 15 minutes. You see how much it meant to him, and how the players received him coming on shows the togetherness of the group. You know, that was a really nice moment. So yeah, it was just a perfect afternoon, topped off by spending time with my no-name ever pals in Tom and George. I had to suffer a car journey with George at 6 a.m. But
no, yeah. You didn't tell us that. I don't think I remember seeing that.
Yeah, no. So George played poverty and claimed he couldn't afford a full train ticket. So yeah, he got in. So he stayed at my dad's. on Friday night, which was cool. So I picked him up from the train station Friday night, and yeah, me, my dad, and George, yeah, we went down to London and had a nice day down. I got Freya's child seat, put it in the back of the car, so George had somewhere to sit. And then we met Tom and his dad, and my cousin was there, and we had a lovely day out together. It was genuinely nice, innit? It was nice, it was good. I seen Tom and his dad at Watford, and ultimately, a bit soppy in me this, but I'm in a good mood while we've got promoted. And football, people who are just armchair fans, they don't get that football's more than just to get the 90 minutes. It's being part of a family, a community. It's meeting people like yourselves and building lasting friendships. And Saturday for me is definitely one of the best away games I've been to. Is I'll remember it for a long time. It was really good.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Is that, I mean, even the Known and Ever team has grown into a family. We talk about this a lot. The original Known and Ever, as all of us back in the day, we're all still friends. Me and James Bird, we're still very close. We have been for years. But this current crop of Known and Ever, we've been together 4 years now, maybe 5, and we talk every day. I don't think there's a day goes by where there's not messages in our group, and some of it's about football, some of it's about utter nonsense. And
disagree. We don't always agree all the time, do we?
That's a good thing. It's a safe space, and it's like, if you imagine a family of the worst brothers and sisters that you've ever come across that absolutely rip each other and have a go and shout and scream, but also, like, if somebody rang that number and said I'm in trouble, like 8 people would be on the doorstep trying to help. It's like and you're right, Rich, that's what happens to football. That's the community. But the people we sit around at Turf, you had your season tickets for years, they're part of your family. And I was genuinely gutted I couldn't make it on Saturday. I was in London and I was aiming to get to the ground, and something came up and I couldn't make it. And it would have been really lovely to spend that time with you. But yes, right. Where am I going next with the game, Tom? I'm going to come to you. Oh, yes, that was it. We've all seen online. Sorry, I was trying to look at my script at the same time. Tom, we've all seen online now. I think somebody shared it to their own personal page. I think the club have picked it up and taken the official footage, and they've run with it as well. There's a moment where Burnley are 3-0 up, and we've already secured promotion. And there is a passage of play where QPR get the ball and start trying to attack. And the defensive manoeuvre that is pulled on those QPR players and the willingness to defend is absolutely incredible. It's elite mentality, right? You've seen it. I mean, that made me really proud watching that.
Oh yeah, you could see it at the ground because they were attacking our end. So it was obvious. You could just see. Obviously, there's one QPR player running up, the rest of them are kind of jogging back, and then there's just a swarm of Burnley players. It was like he'd gone from being sort of through on goal to having 7 men around him, and just like he just looked up and just thought, what the hell? Where have you looked up?
You're 3-0 up. Let me have a shot.
Yeah, that was it. I think it speaks to 2 things really. I think what we already touched on was that we cared about the outcome, and we were really giving it to them. QPR win. I think you could see from the way their players kind of reacted to trying to get on the pitch, and the fact that their manager made 2 subs at half time didn't surprise me. But the other thing is the clean sheet record. I think it's been fairly obvious for a good chunk of this season now that the players and the staff are aware of it and they want to try and beat it. I think James Trafford strikes me as the kind of bloke who'd like to have these records to his name. He's obviously got a big future ahead of him, and I think he's very conscious of what he could be achieving in his career. Obviously, at times we've complained a little bit that maybe there's a bit too much focus on the clean sheet record and not enough on the ball going the other way. But when you 3-0 up at half time or whatever, or when you 3-0 up, as you say, a minute before half time, I was certainly thinking, God, it would be a shame if we conceded in this game now. And I think the players are thinking the same thing. And yeah, just the desire to put their bodies on the line, like you say, in a game where it doesn't really matter. And if we break clean sheet records, it's nice, but it's not the be all and end all. But the players obviously really cared about that. They obviously really care about getting that record for each other as well. And yeah, it's fantastic to see. And when something like that goes viral and you see that being shared around, you just all you can do is be proud. It's fantastic. And we should give a bit of a mention to Trafford as well. I know it was a 5-0 away win, and I feel very comfortable. But he pulled that one absolutely superb save. I think it was 3 or 4 at the time. Ball comes across, and Colback hits a really fierce shot from the edge of the box, flying in. And Trafford read it so well. He must have seen it late, and he got down to it, got a big hand in it. And when Colback hit it, I was going, oh no, because I was thinking, oh, that's such a shame to lose this clean sheet record like that. The save was fantastic. So the keeper doesn't often get any plaudits from a 5-0 away win, and he only had that one thing to do all day really, but he did it superbly well.
That's one of the things that's really impressed me about Trafford this season. I mean, obviously the defence has been incredible, and his performance as a goalkeeper has been incredible, but it's the amount of particularly when we've been playing the lower sides, and particularly at home, the amount of times where Trafford has literally had 89 minutes with nothing to do, and then all of a sudden a break comes out of nowhere, and his ability to just be like that and jump on it and make the save or pull something out of the bag is pretty incredible. And I just wonder, like, how have you got that mental discipline to stay that sharp throughout the game? It's incredible. It really is. Rich, I'm going to come to you with this final point on particularly coming around to his clean sheet record and the defensive there, because I think this is probably a bit more technical. I'm not saying you can't answer a technical question, Tom, but maybe that's exactly what I'm saying. But Rich is our resident coach, technical board. So I'm going to ask him this question. We've been famous for a defensive resilience for a number of years, but this defensive ability feels different to me than the one under Dyche. Is that just a different generation thing, or do they defend differently from a technical?
Have you got your spade in that back garden, Natalie? There, just digging yourself a little bit deeper.
I thought I styled that out pretty well. No,
it's fine. I liked it.
But you've got qualifications and everything. We're talking to make it up as we go along.
I don't know how much it's probably outdated. The UEFA badge I got now, I think it was like early 20s. But
see, he's having a go at me about digging, and he dropped the clanger of his UEFA badge that he's got. Carry on, Rich.
Delete that. Well, it's very David Bread now, wasn't it? I think there's obviously. I think the way we played earlier in the season, I think we kept the ball better first and foremost, and then it's harder to concede goals when you keep the ball. I think obviously we play 5 in midfield now, which does help. I think a big factor is we've got a cheat code in Esteve who literally mops up everybody else's. As amazing as Egan Riley is, Esteve is the key back there. You're even seeing it against Sheffield United and then against QPR. Anytime he got I suppose left 1-on-1, he would just mop up the danger. And like I said, I think it's that desire to work hard. I think we've really mastered when to press and when to sit back. I think we've got that balance, right, pretty much on every occasion. And I think everybody just knows the roles perfectly well. And we've got an ability to soak up pressure. And somebody said to me, "Oh, it's going to be tough today, because Sheffield United's going to just bombard us. They're playing like cannon and Kiefer Moore up front. We struggled defensively with the ball in the air." And I'm like, "What are you on about?" Like Blackburn away, we defended really well. Derby away, we defend. Coventry, second half, we defended that really well. So I just think we've got an ability to defend in a variety of different aspects, really. And whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, Parker's an absolute genius at sucking the life out of a game. So if we are winning 1-0, we will, keep the ball a little bit longer. We will get the ball in forward positions and recycle it out wide. So I think both in and out of possession, we are set up very well. And look at the 3 handsome chaps there.
I just found him while you were talking then. Yeah, those of you who are listening to this on our podcast channel, I've been trying to find the picture I was talking about the three of them at QPR. So you'll need to head to our YouTube channel on around 29 minutes and 45 seconds, and you'll be able to see it. So sorry, Rich, do carry on. I just wanted to put that up there.
I think that's fair. I don't think there's just one particular thing. I think there's a number of different factors, just the one thing I've noticed is probably how we set up defensively and how good we are at reading moments in the game of when to press further forward and actually when to sit back and contain and, get men behind the ball. I think we've done that really well. I think there's a lot of teams, they sometimes get mixed up with what they're doing. And that's because they're probably not coached as effectively as we are under Parker and his backroom team.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, anything else either one of you would like to cover from the game, or have we covered it all? I don't think there's not that many talking points really, but anything else you want to touch on before we move on?
Just be nice to say it was really good to see Aaron Ramsey back on the pitch. We saw the documentary that the club put out about him. A long 14 months. It's obviously quite mentally draining as well as physically to come back from a big injury like that. And he got a fantastic reception, I thought, from the away end. And I really enjoyed watching his full-time interview. He looked absolutely delighted to be back on the pitch. Just a nice shout out to him.
Yeah, definitely. It was really, really lovely. And I loved the fuss that the club made of him as well. I thought it was really lovely. I thought it was like they really put their arms around him and made him front and centre for the day. And I just thought that was a really nice thing to do. Okay, let's move on very quickly before we call it a day to the Championship. We've got one game to play tonight, Leeds against Bristol City tonight, which is a key game. So we'll touch on that first, but then we're going into the final week of the season with lots of things still to play for in the Championship. So when Rich stops playing with Freya Steele,
he's got the ball out.
Oh no. Sign her up. So let's start with you, just to give Tom a break. We are recording this and probably going to get it out in advance of the key game between Leeds and Bristol City tonight. I would much prefer our fixture, QPR away, a game that meant nothing to the other side. Leeds have got their work cut out for you because they're having to face a Bristol City side that need to win to secure their playoff position. What do you think, Freya? She doesn't care.
Sorry, she just got the ball out, the little one.
You're all right. Don't
listen,
worry.
I still fancy Leeds to win both games, to be honest with you. I think, obviously, Bristol's got a lot to play for. I'm pretty sure I looked at the table, and if Bristol win, I think they've secured their playoff place. I think I'm right with that. So they've got massive to play for.
Exactly.
But I thought, listen, it's a one-off game, isn't it? I thought Bristol were pretty poor against us, to be honest, at Turf Moor.
Yeah.
But obviously, I just think the gap between us and Leeds and even Sheffield, really, compared to the rest of the teams, is quite big. And I think it's a shame that Plymouth can't stay up on the last game of the season, because I think they'll maybe a bit of that QPR syndrome. They might just lack that little bit of intensity. Well, they're not going to play with the same intensity. And when you're a weaker side individually and collectively, when you just off it a little bit, you can get turned over. But ultimately, we all want to win the league. Of course we do. I'm
not that forced, to be honest.
No, I am. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Like, I think whatever you try and do, you want to be the best at it. So I definitely would 100% rather win the league. Yeah, but like I said, the main job's done. So yeah, we got to see in it. But I do fancy Leeds to win both games. But if we get 100 points and don't win the league, listen, fair play to Leeds. And I know there's a lot of there is a rivalry between Burnley and Leeds, and we all kind of like to see Leeds fall apart, and they had a little spell. But credit to them. I thought the manager's done a great job. They are a good team to watch. So if they get 100 points and we don't quite do it on goal difference, it is what it is. A little silver lining of Millwall. Say if they, do you know what would be special as well if we didn't. If we did go a whole season unbeaten at home, and we went 33 games unbeaten, but if Millwall got a point, even though I do really, really want to win the league, and I'd rather us beat Millwall and win the league, if Millwall got a point and it meant them down the road not getting in the playoffs, I could also go to sleep.
They're not going to get in the playoffs anyway. There's too many sides.
All of a sudden,
We'll come on to that in a minute. Don't worry. We're not bothering about them. Let's just stick with at least 1 minute and we'll come back to you on that playoff race, Rich. Tom, do we think then, given what Rich has just said about that Plymouth game, the last game of the season, do we think the title's going to get decided tonight? So if Leeds do beat Bristol City, it's probably done and we're probably going to finish second? Or do you think there is any possibility that it can go to the final game of the season? Whenever you're ready, mate, don't worry about it. We've got a mute button problem, podcast listeners. There we are, he's back. No, we've got some technical issues going on here, listeners. Those of you who are watching this can see this happening holding, but yeah, it's all right. I'm explaining to our audio listeners what's going on. Yeah. Carry on, my friend, you're back.
I had myself on mute while Rich was talking, and then it wouldn't let me unmute for some reason. Sorry about that. Better late than never. Yes, sorry. Plymouth are not a very good side, are they? But they have been very good in recent weeks. I think maybe just that thing of now that they had the hopes gone, if you know what I mean, and obviously they haven't really got anything to play for, unlike Leeds. I think it's a bit of a shame. All the sort of playoff chasing teams did really badly at the weekend, because I think Bristol City can lose tonight and still they just need a win at home to Preston on Saturday to get fifth. And it would have been nice if, say, if Covent, Middlesbrough had won or something and they needed something tonight. That would have been interesting. But I'm probably with Rich, to be honest. I think if Leeds want it, I'd fancy them to beat Bristol City and Plymouth. But let's hope they've just been on the piss for a few days and they're not that bothered and Bristol City can get something tonight. I think if they lose tonight, we only need a draw, don't we, home to Millwall?
Correct.
And I was thinking that wouldn't it be nice just to seal it in proper Scott Parker style with a backs to the wall 0-0.
0-0 draw. Give Millwall, we get the title, a trademark Parker 0-0, and Millwall get the playoffs. Love it. Love it. I absolutely love it. Right, Rich, let's just come back to you. Just let's Tom sort out his slight technical problems, have a little bit of a break. So let's look at the top of that championship table then. Obviously, we know that Sheffield United have got third. Sunderland have got fourth. That's now been confirmed. What are you laughing at?
Me?
Yeah, what were you laughing at then? I had a laughing noise down my ear.
Oh, just nothing. The little one's just being daft.
Okay.
So it's not at you at all.
Okay, good.
It's a happy laugh, not a...
I like it. I like this. Right, so Sheffield United have got let's go back again. Sheffield United have got third, Sunderland have got second, and we've got 2 playoff places to go, which is currently NA2 from Bristol City on 67 points, Coventry on 66, Millwall on 66, then down the road at 65, and Middlesbrough, weirdly, can still get in there just about, yes, they can, on 64, and West Brom down as well out of it. So between, obviously, if Bristol City win tonight, puts them on 70 points, they're confirmed, and there's only 1 place left. But looking at that table, Rich, who do you fancy to get those 2, what's it called, playoff places?
Yeah, I think Bristol will beat Preston on the last day. Fingers crossed they do anyway. And I think they'll get it. Credit to Bristol. They've had a great season. I don't think anybody expected them to be up there. Who did Coventry play on the last game?
Coventry. I'm just looking at the fixtures now.
Middlesbrough, don't they?
Yeah, it's Coventry and Middlesbrough, which is a massive.
Is it at the Recall? Is it at the Recall?
It's at Coventry, yes. So Middlesbrough have to beat Coventry to go up into 6th place.
Listen, it's so hard to predict, isn't it? Because Coventry's obviously been overall really strong at home, and credit to Lampard, he has done a magnificent job since he went there. And do you know what? I don't care as long as Blackburn don't get in it. I can't
see them do. Although they get to play Sheffield United, which is
this is the first time this season I'll be supporting Sheffield United, which feels a weird twist in fate, doesn't it?
Yeah,
to the last game.
if you're
because
Chris
there could have been
Wilder,
a scenario where we could have been supporting Blackburn on the last day.
that's true. Yeah, that would have been
in
horrific.
another universe. But
yeah, exactly.
It's funny how the protests have stopped in it since they've been winning a few
Oh,
games.
yeah.
So that's funny. But anyway.
So if you're from your perspective, then
well, you've got to go for the teams who are, you've got to go Bristol and Coventry. They're in the driving seat. They've got 2 games at home. It's unfortunate. Did Middlesbrough draw at the weekend?
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate that Middlesbrough didn't win. Are Middlesbrough above Blackburn?
No, Middlesbrough are right behind them, 1 point behind them. Middlesbrough are the last team out there.
And I can't see
to get into the playoffs, they have to win, and Coventry, Millwall, and Blackburn all have to lose. So,
Millwall. I don't think Millwall will beat us at all. The way we play. So, but for again, great season. So, listen, it's a bit boring, but I'll probably go Bristol and Coventry just by the basis. They're both at home the last game.
Yeah, I agree.
They're both in the playoff positions now. So
yeah. From your perspective, Tom, if you are Chris Wilder, and obviously you've got nothing to play for, you've cemented third. How do you approach this game? Because there's a lot riding on it for Blackburn. They have to win, but Sheffield United can lose. It doesn't really matter. They're going to finish third irrespective. They can't be beaten into third now by Sunderland. They're just too far ahead. How do you approach this game? Do you actually play your stronger side and instill that winning mentality to take them into the playoffs on form? Or do you let them have a break, play some reserves and prepare everybody else for the playoffs? How do you approach that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, isn't it? It's there's no real right way to do it, I don't think. Because you saw this time last year, Southampton knew a few weeks before they were going to be in the playoffs. They rested players for the last few weeks. They had a few. I think they got beat 5-0 off somebody. And they certainly had some bad results. But then, obviously, they come out the right side in the playoffs. They won them. And Sunderland, obviously, they knew a few weeks ago they were going to be in the playoffs. They seem to have taken the same approach, and they're in terrible form now. They're free falling. All the fans are complaining. And I think that they went back to playing their best team on Saturday, and they still got beat off Oxford. I think if it was me, I think I'd rather put my best team out and keep the momentum going. And I think they rotated a few. Like I know Hamer was rested because I think if he gets 2 more yellows, he'd miss a playoff game.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So they rotated a couple, but they still had quite a strong team out, and they beat Stoke handily enough. If I'm Chris Wilder, well, God forbid, I'd probably be slightly more tolerant about people eating sandwiches in my presence for one thing. But if I was Chris Wilder, I would be playing my best team or a decent team. I wouldn't be making 11 changes for that one. I think I'd prefer to have a bit of momentum going in. And I think it could come back to bite Sunderland, to be honest, the way they've rested so many. But I think it's not just the players as well. I think it's the atmosphere around the club. I think the Sunderland fans are on a real downer going into those playoffs now, whereas Sheffield United, it was a bit of a kick in the teeth to obviously kind of throw it away in the way they did and lose to us. I think they need a couple of wins just to get the fans back on side and give them a bit of optimism. So, I
wouldn't disagree with that, to be fair. I think that's a really good point. Okay, Rich, let's come back to you now. That's the playoff sorted, but it's getting equally as tasty down at the bottom. Now, relegated, Cardiff City have already been relegated. They're down. It's now between Derby, Preston, Luton, Hull. Plymouth are pretty much down, barring a most ridiculous swing in playoffs. So there's one place to go between Derby, Preston, Luton, and Hull. Let's go our neighbours down the road at Deepdale, because when they beat us in the FA Cup and got through to the quarterfinals, and we were in fair play to them because they had nothing to play for in the league. They weren't going down, they weren't getting the playoffs, and they could put all of their eggs in the FA Cup basket. Since losing that FA Cup final, they have gone on the most ridiculous run and find themselves potentially getting relegated next weekend if results go their way. Now, if we can pause for a brief minute and just laugh insanely, which I just find it brilliant, that is quite some spectacular. Like, what are we doing here? Which is the bigger chalk? Are we talking Walsall in League Two getting rid of a 14-point lead to maybe end up in the playoffs, or Preston being literally on the beach 10 weeks ago and possibly getting relegated. That is the battle here, right? It's incredible, Rich.
Yeah, I think Walsall's is a complete, because they were. I don't think it was the fact they were just so far clear at the top. They were like so far clear of fourth.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I would love it if Preston went down.
Me too.
After this season, we'll see what happens.
Especially the thing as well. I just think that would just be hilarious.
They've not carried themselves well at all, and I've always, even though there's been a rivalry with Preston, not minded them too much. But yeah, like you said, it's just they've not won in a long time. It was only after the kind of like bank holiday weekend results that you kind of go, Jesus, because all the other a lot of the other teams won at the bottom, that you kind of go, wow, Preston are really in it. I've just looked now, like Preston's away at Bristol, so it's one of them though, isn't it? Say if Bristol win tonight, which is unlikely, but they could do, which is great for us in that scenario. It probably means that they might not be quite as up for it last game of the season.
Correct. Yeah.
So a draw might be a good result tonight if you're really bothered about Preston. And then Hull's away at Pompey and Luton's away at West Brom. So obviously when you're away from home, it's obviously a little bit harder. West Brom are in a terrible run of form, and Luton are playing the best football of the season. I think Luton will get a result there.
Yeah, I agree.
Who's Derby got, Tom? You'll know better than me, being a Derby man.
Derby are away at home to Stoke.
Well, it's a big game for Stoke, isn't it, too? So it's it's so hard to predict what's going to happen. I think the stars have got to align pretty well for Preston to go down. But listen, crazier things have happened, haven't they?
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm just little bit gutted for Plymouth that they've just run out of time a little bit, because I genuinely think with 5 more games, Plymouth would have stayed up. Like I put in our chat then, since that manager's come in, who's pretty impressive, they've been 12th in the form table.
Yeah, they've done really well.
And especially with them doing us that big favour, I would have liked to at least gone into this last game of the season with a chance to stay up. So it's going to be, it's almost one of them, innit, where you'd like to watch the Burnley game and almost have like Soccer Saturday up on the big screen.
Yeah, you would.
with the scores coming in, but I'll probably I don't like to check my phone at football. I like to just be immersed in the game. But
wait, hang on a minute. You can get phone reception at Turf Moor.
Yeah,
what wizardry is this?
I can get on. Listen, there's other apps out there, but Flash Scores works for me at Burnley. Obviously,
right, okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Rich, we're allowed. We're not the BBC. You're allowed to say we're not.
Other people might condemn me for not
paid ad.
But yeah, no, it is. It's mad, And one mention I will say as well, we're on other clubs. What a fantastic achievement for Oxford to stay up. What an amazing season they've had. Obviously, Robert's gone in there, done a great job. So yeah, but yeah, it's so interesting. Listen, it's one of them where you want to dine at the top table, don't you? You want to play Premier League football, but there's also that element of that you will miss being in the Championship next season. Because
such a good league.
I think it's the best league in the world in terms of not quality all the time, because you do watch some shocking games, but in terms of just the closeness and the competitiveness. Yeah, it's an amazing league.
Yeah, no, I agree. Tom finishes off this section. Then you can be the deciding voice of the No One Ever poll this week. Who takes that final relegation spot? Hull, Luton, Preston, or Derby? Who's going down?
I agree with Rich. I think Luton will get something at West Brom. I think Derby will be all right now, and that win at Hull was massive. For me, it's whether Portsmouth turn up against Hull or whether they're on the beach. And I really, it might be wishful thinking, but I really think Hull have got a chance of going there and winning. And if Bristol City are halfway up for it, I really think we could be seeing the most disastrous relegation for a long time. That'll be, and I tell you, I'm with Rich. I'm not that bothered about Preston really, but the way they were giving it the big one after they knocked us out the cup, you think they'd won the Bristol. So I wouldn't mind. Seeing them slip. I won't be that bothered if they don't, but it would be very
exactly. They get relegated. Osmajic in the summer admits to the offence they did against Hannibal, and it'd just be like there'll be so many Preston fans who've got an awful lot to be sorry for this season. out of all the Lancashire sides, apart from Accrington, because I like Accrington, I like Stanley, but Preston, the one that I'm probably not that bothered about. Like I dislike Blackpool a bit more than I'll dislike Preston. It's just like they just, I don't really bother about them. But the way they've been this season has been appalling. So I will laugh insanely. Blackburn miss out on the playoffs and Preston go down. We win the title. And honestly, I will rescind everything I've said all season. It'll be the best season ever. Right. Okay. Let's wrap that up there. A very quick comment. Ahead of the game at the weekend, we have had some quite serious warnings from our board this week about pitch invasions. There was a pitch encroachment at that Sheffield United game. There was a lot of damage done reportedly to the ground and the seats, and particularly the very expensive LED hoardings on there. There was a complaint made by, not formally, I don't think, but complaint made in the press by Chris Wilder about security for his own players. There's been a very harsh statement being put out, Tom, which basically says, if you go onto the pitch, you've committed an offence, we will identify you, and where we can show that you have caused damage to the ground, we are going to bill you for a proportion of those repairs. Not gone down too well, and I'm going to be very careful how I address this because I know where I sit on this. I don't personally think you can commit an offence when you know it's offence and whinge that you get ramifications from it, or, and I know both of you are very keen on this, or use a defence of it's just football and we've always done it, so it's fine. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to give you two the floor because I know you two have got very strong opinions on this, and particularly the statement by the clubs. I'm going to give you an opportunity publicly to talk through the statement and how you feel Saturday's game should go. Who wants to go first? Tom, there you go.
Yeah, I'll take the baton up then. I think the statement is the thing. So I can understand that it's, you know, it's nominally it's illegal to run on the pitch. Yeah, it doesn't stop every team who gets promoted doing it every season, and I don't think I've ever seen any club come out with a statement that's quite so aggressive and quite so damning of their own fans for doing it. It'll be one thing if it was a bloke running on the pitch with a hammer and deliberately smashing bits out of the LED board. I've not seen any damage to the LED board, so I don't know what occurred or whether it was, you know, hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of damage, as the club said. It doesn't really ring true to me, but if that's what they say, that's what it is. And I can understand Sheffield United being a little bit trepidatious because of what happened a couple of years ago at Forest when there was Sheffield United players getting attacked and that kind of thing. I think that puts a bit of context to their reaction. I don't think anyone actually, you know, there was a few comments made, but I don't think there's anything. As Chris Wilder said, it's nothing that he hasn't given out himself. So when it's a good-natured pitch invasion like that, I just the response, the heavy-handed kind of weighing in from the club is just I just can't get my head around who signed off on kind of speaking to people like that. I think it'd be one thing, you know, if they put something out before the game and said, look, if we win, we're gonna come down very aggressively on anyone who does run on the pitch. If you'd had a bit of forewarning, because I don't think anyone who ran on that pitch, particularly not, you know, just kids, families who are running on, just because it's what you do and it's what you've always done. And as I say, you know, there was the Wrexham players were on the fans' shoulders on Saturday after they got their promotion. There's no,
yeah,
I don't think
I was going to bring this up actually.
Yeah,
that's pausing there, Tom. That's a really good point because that's being filmed for Welcome to Wrexham by Hollywood superstars and broadcast around the world as being, look how incredible our fan base is, look at the passion, look at all of this. And then you've got a team leaving the club that the division they're coming into that have got a very different attitude. So this is not a consistent message. And I get that. I do get that. That's problematic. So yeah, I do. I would be concerned with that. Sorry, I did interrupt you then. I'll let you get back to that.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, no worries. It's, well, like you're saying, I think the club have put their own promo videos out where they've had people running on the pitch and celebrating. And, you know, it's, like I say, it's the dumb thing. And we know it's illegal. I mean, there's a lot of things that are, you know, without getting into specifics, I'm sure we've all done things that we know are illegal that we've indulged in anyway.
I have not. Can I be very, very clear?
Sorry, yeah.
For the public service announcement, I can confirm I have never committed an illegal activity. Thank you for that Tom. Carry on.
Yeah, yes. Apologies for that. I'm sure there's a good proportion of our listeners that have done things that they know perhaps are illegal, that perhaps aren't terribly consequential crimes. Let's put it that way. And I don't think anyone, as I say, families, kids, parents, whatever, running on that pitch are thinking, "Oh, I'm really taking a risk here because the club are going to pour through CCTV and threaten to ban me and the 1,000 other people that are on this pitch." Because it just doesn't happen, does it? And I think if they'd have done it before the game even and said, "Look, we're not messing about saying this, we are definitely going to ban everyone who goes on the pitch," you'd have thought, "Oh, give over." You'd have still been very unimpressed with the tone of the statement. But I think you wouldn't have put the fear into people as much as it has done, as I'm sure it has done. Not that I went on the pitch, I certainly do in my couple, but anyone who did do would probably be quite nervous reading that, and when they haven't really done a right lot wrong. And as I say, anyone who's gone on to cause trouble, anyone who's gone on to attack people or to smash up hoardings or anything like that, fair enough. But I very much doubt anyone has, and if there is a very small minority that have done, I'm sure they'll be dealt with accordingly. But I think it just really comes down to a lack of understanding from the people who run the club, for me, as to what people were doing, why they were doing it, and how these kind of things work in English football. And to come out the way they have done, and then they'll be turning around on Saturday and complaining about the atmosphere again. And when you create this kind of feeling that you're scared almost to shout something or to wave a flag that's not got a fire certificate or whatever, it's not really a surprise that the atmosphere is impacted.
Good feedback. Thanks, Tom. Rich, is there anything you want to add to that, or has Tom pretty much covered it?
Listen, I think Tom's articulated it very well. I think he's probably articulate. Well, he's definitely articulated it better than I would have done. The one thing is, I think it's just the heavy-handedness of it. I felt it was very patronising, condescending of their own supporters who pay a lot of money, and to say there's going to be like bans. So like, criminal damage. So like a dad and his lad or his daughter run on the pitch for a few minutes who supported the club for years. I think it's a bit, listen, from a very, very, very straight and narrow point of view, yeah, I suppose what people did was wrong. But ultimately, like, people's just expressing emotion and just letting off a little bit of steam and enjoying that moment. Do you think the play, so I just think it's hard because this podcast has been a real positive one, but I think the board and the chairman have done a lot of very good things, but I think there's sometimes where they just miss the point and frustrate people.
Yeah.
And
I think that has been come through a lot, is that actually. And
this one, I think, hit the nerve of a lot of people and a lot of reasonable people too, who aren't divvies, and we're just like, why? You know what? Sometimes, like me as a teacher, if my students have worked really, really hard all season and all year and give a lot, and they may do something they shouldn't have done that, am I going to like really patronise them? So I think there's times where you just got to let stuff go a little bit for the greater good. And I think the problem is with a statement like this, the last thing I'll say, with a statement like this, which is very heavy-handed, which in my opinion, I'll be surprised no other club will put out a statement anywhere near as damning as their own towards their own fans. At the moment, it's okay because we're successful, but in another 12 months, 2 years, if we're not quite as successful, stuff like this will go against them. So, and that's kind of the way I will leave it. But at the same time, it's been done. Hopefully, we can have a fantastic atmosphere on Saturday. I think he'll probably get his wish, and I don't think there'll be another pitch invasion on Saturday if we do win the league. So he's probably got his way with it. But I think maybe if the message had to be said, but I think it could have been handled so much better. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it in a public.
Yeah, I like it.
Anyway.
Lovely. Thanks, both. Excellent. So let's leave it there. We are going to sign off now because we're all going to tune into the Sky Bet Championship and see whether or not Bristol City can do us a favour and help us bring that trophy home. We will be back. I think we're going to try and do a little bit of a preview ahead of the game, Millwall game at the weekend. I need to speak to Statman Dave. I've been ignoring him for a couple of weeks because I've been on holiday, so he's probably going to shout at me when I speak to him, but I'm going to speak to him anyway and see if there's anything that we want to do ahead of that game. So keep an eye on social media and see whether or not we have got anything to publish. If not, we will be back after that game at the weekend with our season roundup, see whether or not it's a promotion, a championship party, or whether or not it's just a promotion party. Who cares? Either way, it's job done. We will be signing off the championship season next week. My thanks as ever go to my colleagues Rich and Tom for joining me this evening to produce a fantastic podcast, and to the whole of the No Nay family, No Nay Never family, for contributing ideas and comments and just helping to bring you the content that you love. Do please hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. It does help the channel grow, and it helps us to carry on next season, which will be season 13 of the No Nay Never podcast. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time. The No Nay Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonaynever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.